right. Oh, excuse me. All right, we are live. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully, we can have a better show than Wednesday. I'm sure most of you that were here on Wednesday, I had a live show going, and it cut short. It got blocked, and then we tried it again, and the same thing happened. About 30 minutes later, it got blocked. I had no idea why that was happening. But I did figure it out. It's pretty stupid and silly. It just goes with working with YouTube. But there was a video that I was playing, and it's not graphic or anything. It's literally an old Nancy Grace show where she had another guy on. I can't think of his name at the moment. But anyway, it's just a talk show host where they were talking about the case, and they had Drew Peterson's former lawyer. And anyway, that video, for some reason, is blocked in certain countries. Not blocked here in the United States. So, I can watch it. And unknown to me, I don't know that it's blocked in other countries until I play the clip. But it doesn't tell me, like YouTube doesn't tell me what the heck's going on. Like, it just says, hey, it's blocked. It does finally let me know the reasons, but it's down the road. But anyway, long story short, that's what happened. If anybody was wondering why the show kept getting turned off, is because for some reason unknown to me at the time, when I'd play these clips, which are very interesting clips because they talk about the former friend of Drew Peterson, really interesting interview with him, and a couple other things. So every time I would play that, not knowing that was the reason, it would eventually kick me out. So anyway, that was it. Pretty stupid in my opinion, but like I said, that's what you get for working with YouTube. There's ups and downs. But anyway, again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to cover the Stacy Peterson case. We will go over the backstory a little bit. Not as much as we did on Wednesday. We'll just kind of recap a little bit of the story. I'm sure most of you guys know Drew Peterson. But yeah, I'm surprised not many people, there's not more people covering this story. Like, to me, I think this is absolutely wild that her sister, most likely, like she claims, there's a statement where she says, she's like 99% sure that it's remains, and that she believes that is her sister's remains. And we'll go over a couple of reasons why that kind of further support that. And yeah, I see some people mentioning the earthquake. I hope everybody's good. I heard it was like, a 4.6? Hopefully nothing major. I'm sure there may be some aftershocks. I thought I saw something on Twitter. So hopefully everybody's good and safe out there on the East Coast. That's scary. We don't, here in Utah, it's very rare to get earthquakes here. I can only think of one or two, and I think both of those happened when I was asleep. So, but anyway, before we get started, we always like to get back by featuring the missing. Let me whip this over. Today, I'm going to feature him again. This is Corey Wolf. He went missing March 21st. So we're about, 2 weeks that he's been missing out of Payson, Arizona. Could be in the East Valley of Phoenix metro area. He is just 15 years old, 110 pounds, 5'6", dark blonde hair, brown eyes. Last seen wearing gray sweatpants and a t-shirt. In the notes here, and let me just kind of straighten that out. It says Corey left his home at 4 a.m. on March 21st. He is in need of medications and struggles with substance abuse, which is it's so terrible to hear a 15-year-old struggling with that. That's terrible. He does not have a phone with him. He has contacted a few friends recently, so I would say that's good news. But his family is still very concerned for his safety, and we featured him on Wednesday. And from what I know there's some PIs, or at least a PI, working on his case. So hopefully, they can find, if it's a potential runaway situation, they can find out where he's at, because we've featured a lot of people missing out of Arizona, and it seems to be like a black hole, sadly. If anybody's out that way and has any information regarding Corey Wolf, you can call 602-732-0081. All right. Let's see. We got Tony D in the house. Boy, I could use you a week from today. Well, a week from tomorrow, actually. You're going to go out. That's actually what I was going to transition to. Good to see you, Tony. I hope you're doing well. A week from tomorrow, we are going to be going out, so not this weekend, but next weekend, looking for Aiden Clune, April 13th and April 14th. Not going to talk too much about him, but I am going to do a video for the members and stuff. But yeah, 19 years old when he went missing 2 years ago in April of 2022. Close to the border of Utah. It's in Wells, Nevada. It's a desert area. He pulled his truck over the side of the freeway and wandered off into the mountain range. They tracked him for about 10 miles and then lost his track. So he has not been seen since. There has been a possible sighting. His mother believes it's possible that he could have made it back out. Now, they took his truck, so he wouldn't have been able to use his truck. But she does think that's a possibility. He could have made it out and just sadly hasn't come forward, but is living with the homeless or something like that. So, but anyway, real quick, and then we'll get going. I did show this last time, but we got the new drone, and thanks to the members, we did name it. Still in the package and everything, because we got to keep it nice and safe. But we did get the DJI Air 3. This has got 2 cameras on it. And if I can even get it out of the package, I haven't even taken it out yet. I've been working on the batteries and stuff, but here it is. Obviously, it's not in its full form yet, but $1,500 drone, and the reviews were good on it, and super stoked because this has got a lot of distance on it. It can. I'm not sure. I'll find out, obviously, when I take it out next weekend. But the last time we searched for him, I had a drone. It was a great drone, but it didn't have the transmission radius like these do. I could only take it like what felt like a half a mile, where our Phantom 4 and this drone should go 3 or 4 times that. So, super stoked. All right, let's get into Stacy Peterson's case. Of course, to recap, we'll talk a little bit about Drew Peterson. Just for anybody that's not familiar with this case. I'm sure most of you are, and I know last time we had some like locals in here, so I'm hoping maybe we'll get some more in here. Perspective, Aiden Clune, have his people check the drum circles. They used to be downtown at the park on Sundays. They're close-knit, take care of each other, at least their version of care. I'm not sure. I'm going to get in touch with the mother this weekend. I haven't talked with her. It's been many, many months, just because, she's busy with a lot of stuff. But, yeah, that's not a bad idea, especially if it's possible that he did make it out of that mountain range, for sure. All right, close that. All right. Yeah, I got a warranty on it, 3-year. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but yeah, I always have a little coverage on it. Okay, let's play a little recap of Drew Peterson and catching up with Stacy Peterson, his fourth wife.
Will recover true crime mystery to the missing. This is Drew Peterson.
Oh,
an arrogant,
right on, perspective.
Abusive, and eventual killer who grew up in the state of Illinois. After marrying his high school sweetheart and a stint in the military, he would eventually join law enforcement in Bolingbrook, Illinois. During his early years, he married and got divorced twice, before Drew Peterson would marry his third wife, Kathleen Savio, in 1992.
She was presented with all the opportunities, the trips, the gifts, and the home, and having children. It was too hard to resist. He loved her, and that's all she wanted.
And she loved him.
Yes, very much.
But soon that love would once again turn to hate, infidelity, and now violence.
He grabbed her wrist and he just threw her against the refrigerator hard.
Good to see you,
And
Ninja.
just went after her.
And their marriage would last just over a decade. Just like his previous 2 marriages, Peterson would cheat on his 3rd wife with a much younger girl who was just turning 17 at the time. Unlike the previous 2 wives, Savio wanted to take half of everything in the divorce, including Peterson's pension and their kids. But Peterson had another plan in mind to make that all go away. Around the time of the divorce, Kathleen Savio verbally told family and friends that she had feared for her life, and that if she was found dead, it would look like an accident, but Peterson would be the man responsible. Sure enough, Savio's body would be found in a bathtub in her home in 2004, which originally was ruled an accidental drowning.
She failed to respond at the door to allow me to bring the children home. I had neighbors go into the house and they found her dead in the bathtub.
People initially suspected Peterson.
Peterson had now moved on and married his 4th wife, Stacy Peterson, who was 35 years younger than her senior, Drew Peterson. But this marriage wouldn't last very long, as Stacy began to see the true monster that Peterson really was.
Soon after marrying Stacy, the couple had 2 children, Drew's 5th and 6th, if you're keeping track.
Stacy was the reason that we all reconciled. It was her that brought us all back together because she insisted that her children were going to know all of their aunts and uncles.
She even took care of the 2 children Drew had with Kathleen, who moved in with them after her death.
That's the kind of person she was.
In August of 2007,
Yeah, I have not seen that movie. Is it actually a movie or is it just, well, if it has Rob Lowe, so it could have been, it was a Good Lifetime movie. Interesting. Yeah, it was Rob Lowe who played Drew Peterson. Yeah, I never saw that. I'll have to check that out. 'Cause I like Rob Lowe. I think a lot of people do, especially women. I know he's a good-looking guy.
Stacy had told a friend that she was coached by Drew to be his alibi when his 3rd wife
psycho.
was
I'll have to
found
check it
dead
out.
in a bathtub. Sadly, Stacy had told many she was fearing for her life but could not escape from Drew Peterson. And sadly, Stacy would go missing on October 29th of 2007. Drew was the last one to see Stacy.
Okay, so this is so there's a little bit of recap, but I thought before we get into the video and stuff, and like I said, there's new interviews. Cassandra Kells, the sister of Stacy, who's been searching for her since day one, obviously went on Brian Anton, the News Nation, and then she's been on Court TV with Vinnie Politan. So that's a newer interview. There's a few extra little details that we'll go over. But before we get ahead of that, I thought we'd kind of go over, because this, like I said, this is obviously another case I've ever really deep dived. But just kind of before the timeline of her disappearance, from what little we have. I'm sure there was more probably, when he was at court. But anyway, so before her disappearance, she said, and this is coming from an Army Captain Scott Rosetto. He was going to testify about a conversation he had with Stacy Peterson just before she disappeared. But confusion over the date of the conversation and a mistake in the email prosecutors sent to the defense lawyers prompted the judge to bar the testimony. So I guess this guy, who I'm assuming may have been kind of seeing her, because obviously she was having issues and fearing for her life with Drew Peterson and wanted to get away from him, was seeking help and comfort. And it sounds like the Scott guy was, who she was kind of seeing. And so anyway, Rosetto, Scott, this our Army captain, was a friend of Peterson's missing 4th wife, Stacy. He briefly took the stand, but the defense objected when they learned that it was just confusion about when and where the conversation between the two took place. But he said, little that we know is Stacy Peterson called him out of the blue weeks before her disappearance, and they exchanged text messages. Then at some point, Drew Peterson caught them at a Denny's and sat down in his police uniform. So I'm assuming he was on patrol, and we've heard how jealous he is, and the fact that he'd have a problem with if there was any infidelity, but yet that's his whole MO with the previous 3 wives. He kind of gets tired of them and starts cheating, and then they find out, and then a divorce, and he moves on to the next one. So this would, I can imagine what that experience would be like with Drew Peterson showing up at Denny's, sitting down in his police uniform. So anyway, Rosetta goes on to say they traded raunchy text messages. So I guess raunchy, subjective word. Maybe this is kind of a love text messages between Stacy shortly before she disappeared in October of 2007. So just a little bit. This was kind of, in my opinion, the catalyst, because he said that he found out that she was supposedly cheating on him, and of course, it's okay for him to do that, but if he finds out that that they're doing that, then that's not okay. So anyway. Let's see. Oh, I just moved that up. Then we move on to closer to her disappearance. The 4th wife, the former Illinois police officer Drew Peterson, was sure her husband would kill her, even telling a neighbor just days before her disappearance in 2007 that "I'm already dead," according to testimony at a pretrial hearing. This was a friend of Stacy's. Sharon told the court that she came upon Stacy Peterson, 23, or was this a neighbor? A neighbor and friend. Oh, it is a neighbor, yes, telling a neighbor. So Sharon, the neighbor, came across Stacy, then 23, crying outside her suburban Chicago home. She explained how she packed 10 boxes of Drew Peterson's clothes and asked her husband, her 30 years plus senior, to leave, but he refused. Oh, I can't imagine. He's done an interview on Larry King where he's like, "Oh, there's no way I could have an attitude or do any domestic violence. I would lose my job." We'll look at that clip here in a little bit, but it's just, what a piece of garbage he is. But I'm sure that pissed him off. She said, "If I disappear, Sharon, it's not an accident. He killed me." A visibly shaken Sharon testified. As Stacy described how she feared for her life, Stacy advised her to put what she said to her in writing. I guess Stacy, in her response, said, "It doesn't matter. I'm already dead. He's going to kill me." And so this was just days before her disappearance, which is just truly heartbreaking. And then we move on to the 2 days, the last 2 days that we know that she was still alive. I'm just checking my chat here. Renee, good to see you. Thank you, Chris, for all your hard work, bringing us the best coverage in YouTube. Here's a little something for the search fund. Thank you so much, Renee. I really appreciate that. As you guys know, if you've been with me, anything you guys donate, it will go towards the search. Not this weekend, but the next weekend. And now would be a great time to become a member or Patreon, because I'll have tons of footage I film when I'm going out there. I don't know if I'll be able to do much lives out there, because out there it's kind of in a desolate area. The service is pretty bad. But thank you so much, Renee. I do appreciate that. So this is Thomas Morphy. This is the stepbrother to Drew Peterson, and he has quite the story. So on October 27th, one day before she was supposedly murdered, the day before, he claims Peterson, we'll skip that part. But he says on October 27th, he says Drew drove him to a park to talk about Stacy cheating on him. So I'm assuming it's got a where he met up and saw her with Rosetto. I'm trying to think of his first name, Scott. And of course was not happy. Morphy said Drew told him he had to take care of the problem, and Morphy assumed he was going to kill someone. Then the conversations got strange, with Drew asking how much he loved him, and if it was enough to kill for me, according to Morphy. He hesitated, but said he could live with knowing about it, but not helping. But according to Morphy's story, he may have done just that. Morphy went into detail about a trip to a storage locker he said Drew wanted him to rent, but he couldn't because he didn't have his ID. And we'll talk about what the plans were for that storage locker. So moving on, just looking. Nope, you're not muted, Mark. We see you, buddy. Oh, good to see you, Michelle. Thank you so much. You guys make this community the best. So the next day, October 28th, the day of her disappearance, Morphy said he met with Drew again, this time heading to a different park. So they met up at a park the day before, talking about more or less getting rid of Stacy, and then trying to get a storage locker, but he couldn't get one. And then this is very interesting. So he said they met up at a different park, October 28th. He said Drew gave him a cell phone. And I'm curious, let me know what you guys think whose cell phone this was in the chat. Telling him not to pick it up if it rang. Less than an hour later, it did. Morphy said the caller ID read Stacy's cell. So it makes me wonder, was it Drew Peterson's cell phone that he gave to Stacy, or gave to Morphy? So that way maybe he couldn't be traced. Now this is 2007. I don't know how well phones were tracked. I mean, I know they were probably not as good as they are now, but they had definitely evolved. But he goes on to say, really, all I could think when I saw Stacy on the phone was that he was killing her while I was standing there. Which is really just makes your skin crawl thinking about that. So he's sitting at this park. He's handed this phone, which I would think it's a possibility it's Drew's phone. I don't know if it was ever confirmed whose phone it was. If you know in the chat, please let me know. And some may think, well, why would Stacy call Drew if he's there? But I wonder if Stacy, you know, knowing that she had supposedly packed up his clothes, you know, days or whoever, you know, before she went missing, and, you know, threatened, you know, you can't come back here, and I'm taking the kids, and we're getting a divorce. And so she saw him pull up in the driveway, and then maybe tried to call him. And so when she tried to call him, obviously, Morphy had the phone. So that's her calling Drew, maybe because she didn't want him to come in the house and maybe tell him, you know, get the hell out of here. I don't know. That's just my theory on it. Let me know in the chat if you think differently. It could be a burner phone, but it's interesting. It says Stacy cell. Continuing on, then Morphy said Drew returned to the park. So obviously, well, he had killed her, picked him up, and asked him to help move something at the house. But we don't want to get too ahead. There's a few more details that happened. Alligator, are you talking about a different, mods, let me know. If there's somebody you want me to feature missing, I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about. I'd be more than happy to. Anyway, I'm trying to get the context on that. I'll look back at that here in a minute. Morphy long has maintained he and Peterson had met at a coffee shop. Now, this is on the 28th, the same day after earlier when he was at the park, and then Drew Peterson shows back up, and then they meet up at a coffee shop at night, and then they went to the couple's, so Stacy and Drew's home in Boylanbrook, and this is where they had moved a large container into Peterson's car. It goes on to say, Drew came out of his bedroom on October 28th, struggling with a large blue barrel, and asked Morphy to help taking it downstairs. Morphy said he wasn't sure. I asked him, shouldn't we have gloves on? He said, no, don't worry about it. Makes me kind of wonder if he was kind of hoping maybe those fingerprints were left on the barrel or something. They could blame it on him. Michelle says, I've never heard. Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting to go. Oh, here's Lee. It was Drew phoning himself from Stacy's phone. Oh, okay, so he did give Drew gave Thomas his phone. Instead of Stacy calling the phone, he killed her, and then he called the phone. Oh, and maybe to make it look like an alibi that she was still alive, and then he's somewhere else, so if she was killed at that time, oh, that would totally make sense. Yeah, I could definitely see that too. I think I could agree with that. Thank you, Lee, for sharing that. I could see that as well. Morphy said both men discussed renting a storage unit, obviously this is the day before, where Pearson wanted to store an airtight container for 6 months until he disposed of it the following night. The same night Stacy was reported missing. Morphy was inside of Peterson's home. Morphy said Peterson walked out of his master bedroom, had a large barrel-like container. He had me grab one end. I grabbed the other. It felt warm. Morphy testified Peterson drove him home while this was in the vehicle of Drew's, which is, I believe, a GMC Denali. I'm not sure the year. This never happened. I said. I will not tell a soul. In her cross-examination, Morphy was asked why he never called 911 during the time. So the defense obviously was going to pick him apart for a couple of reasons. One, he didn't call 911 because he said he feared for his life because if Drew would kill him. Morphy answered that he was afraid Drew Peterson would shoot him. Morphy also testified that he never saw what was inside the blue barrel, but based on the conversations he had with Peterson that Saturday and the events that took place on Sunday, he's assuming that Stacy Peterson's body was in the blue barrel. And this is coming from a neighbor. This bottom part here is, according to his testimony, and this is a neighbor, I forget the name, the two men took the barrel, put it in Peterson's SUV, and Peterson drove Morphy home. And again, there's just one last little bit here. So this comes from Mark Furman. I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with him. OJ case, former LAPD homicide detective, now Fox analyst. He was interviewed about what he discovered. He said, well, Greta, it's kind of, not a long story, but we had to go back to last week. It was revealed that he had interviewed a neighbor of Drew Peterson, and that this neighbor had seen Drew Peterson and an unidentified male, which would have been Morphy, loading a blue barrel into his GMC Denali SUV. And that was on October 28th. That was the day Stacy Peterson was last heard from, about 10:30 that morning. So I wonder if that phone call was maybe from her cell to Drew Peterson cell phone, was kind of like that, where they get the 10:30 timeline. I could be wrong, but that could be the case. Now, of course, the defense was going to tear Morphy down because he was he had bipolar, and he had substance abuse, and he was an alcoholic. He did try to take his life right after this happened. So that tells me that even though, as much as you want to discredit this guy, clearly there was something that disturbed him so bad that he was willing to take his own life. He attempted to. It failed, but I can't imagine that burden, going through that.
Now, Stacy, what happened?
So here's just a little clip from Drew Peterson. Obviously, before, his fourth wife go missing, and then not long after that, in November, I believe, is when they went to exhume his third wife's body, Kathleen Savio, to see if that was really an accidental drowning or if there was something more nefarious. And obviously there was. Anyway, here's just him getting questioned. I thought this was just so arrogant and funny.
Were you married? Were you separated?
We were married. We were living together, and we talked that morning. And what happened?
Was the marriage going through problems?
The marriage had been going through problems since her sister died.
Were you ever physical with her?
Never.
Never. So
No.
those stories are totally untrue.
Correct. I'm a police officer.
Right.
And I don't work for the phone company or the power company. And as a police officer, we don't have the same ability to do things as the common person. If I get involved in a domestic situation where I'm physical with a wife, I'll lose my job.
Oh, so he's a cop. That means he can't hurt anybody. He can't get in domestic violence. That can't happen. This next quote is just hilarious.
And I would never even care to even come close to risking that. And I kind of challenge anybody out there to find anybody that has ever even seen me mad. So
You don't have a temper?
no, it's
Are you in love with Stacy?
very much so.
Think she might be alive?
I do.
And it's not funny, but it's just his arrogance. Where's that comment? Connected area, Drew Boy got around. I recall his attitude while living in the area. I think a lot of people could quote that he had some temper. And yeah, I could bring up a bunch of examples, but I don't want to get too off track here. Deborah Ann, thank you so much for renewing your Mob Crew membership. I really appreciate the support. It means the world to me. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Let's see, we got almost 300 people in here. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. I promise this show won't get blocked. If you missed what I talked about earlier, we figured out that the whole reason behind that, which was something silly and stupid. So,
Drew Peterson.
So here's just kind of finish up the timeline of just after Stacy's disappearance and the body exhumation of Kathleen Savio, and then of course his arrest and trial. This is all kind of thrown together in about 2 minutes.
Claimed that Stacy had taken a bunch of cash and bikinis and left him, but her family and friends knew that she would never leave her kids. This would spark law enforcement to look closer at one of their own, and a month later, in November of 2007, they would exhume Kathleen Savio's body and determine that it was not an accidental drowning, but Savio was actually murdered. She had multiple bruises and a large gash on her head. Unfortunately, they could not press charges right away due to the lack of evidence, and with Stacy Peterson still missing, it would take until May 7th of 2009 to officially charge Peterson with Savio's murder. Drew Peterson would be convicted by a group of his peers in 2012 and sentenced to 38 years.
Smile at him.
The jury deliberates, and when the verdict comes back, it's a shocker. At least for Drew. Guilty of murder. Here he is in court responding to the ruling.
I did not kill him, please!
Yeah, he doesn't have a temper. He challenges anybody that he has... challenges anybody. And here he is in court, bursting out. Ugh.
To which Kathleen's sister says,
Yes, you did.
Good
and
for
they
her.
said guilty.
But while all of this was going on, there was a young mother, Stacy Ann, who had been missing since late 2007, and she had not been found. Stacy had a very close sister, Cassandra Cal, who was on a mission to find her sister Stacy. She was able to get funds for diving equipment and an ROV, which is a submersible that has cameras on it. She took this equipment to the Illinois Canal in Lockport, which is less than 10 miles from where her sister Stacy was last seen.
Okay, so I put that in my video because after seeing the interview with Brian Enton the other day, and there's clips talking about that they're in Lockport and that she's searching the I&M canal. Gosh, I&M canal. And that stands for Illinois and Michigan Canal. Learning new stuff every day. So, but anyway, like I said, there's this court TV interview, which I've got most of. But they talk about that where she's at was 20 miles further south. So I could be wrong on this. But anyway, I got to circle back because I'm a little confused on this.
What exactly we are looking at.
So I like they did this a little side by side to kind of give you an idea. I think this is definitely I don't know 100%, but I think this definitely looks like a skull. And I tried to do a couple things that I'll show here towards the end. But, you'd think you'd kind of maybe see like the nose socket and the other, because this would be the right eye socket, and then you would have kind of like the nose and then the left. But obviously you have this piece of equipment. I don't know if I think it's the arm to the ROV that's kind of blocking part of the view. But she does go on to say that, a lot of it got filled up with the sediment. Which would make sense. So it would kind of fill up and maybe you wouldn't be able to see the holes. Even the right eye socket doesn't appear to be very deep, which would be just because maybe it's got sediment and stuff. And then we'll talk about this jaw because I really can kind of see this jaw, and I'll show it here in a bit.
That's what I see. That's absolutely.
So this is Vinnie Paulton, I think, interviewed yesterday or the day before. I think this was yesterday, though.
What I'm seeing tonight. Now, where is all this located? Let's take a look. It's about 27 miles away from where Stacy lived, about a 33-minute drive. So it's close, folks. It is close. Let's take a listen. For those of you who don't remember this man, this killer, Drew Peterson, here he is on Larry King discussing Stacy.
Right. So here's a video. So I went and looked at court TVs where they got their stuff labeled. And the I&M Canal, it's kind of like for anybody, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with freeways and then frontage roads that run parallel to these freeways. And that's kind of what this canal is. I'm not 100%. Don't quote me on this. I'm assuming this is kind of used as like an outflow to kind of keep the main rivers and stuff in the canal. If they're getting too high or something, this is kind of like an offshoot. I don't know if somebody local could explain it better. That's kind of what I kind of gathered from it. But this canal, like I said, it just runs for, it's miles and miles. And there's so many areas with this canal, and it's not big. It's not big at all. And here's just kind of a shot just showing, and this is one of the many locations that you could go to near this canal and drive like 5-10 feet next to it and dump something in. Like, I mean, you could dump something right over this bridge, at night. But the one thing I also think is, I wonder if they were fixated on finding the blue barrel, but the fact that he knew Morphe had seen the blue barrel makes me wonder if that was just really more to transport her, and that, there's the interview with his former friend who he talked about, the best way to get rid of a body is in water and to put scuba weights on it to keep the body from, obviously when the body starts to decomp, it gets gassy and then it starts to pop up. So I wonder if he didn't actually throw the whole blue barrel in there with the body. It was just, he used it as a transportation and conceal, and then he just dumped the body out, which to me, that makes more sense. Because if you have this big blue container, then you're going to actually preserve, now even thinking about it more, if you kept this blue container and it remains in it, and if it was properly sealed, those remains, even though they would still decomp, even if it was down to skeletal remains, they would still be able to, like, depending on whatever he did to her, if he smacked her over the head, there would be, cracks in her skull. And so they would be able to determine, what happened to her, just like kind of like in the case with his third wife. But if he just dumped the body would slowly decompose and then kind of drift away from the bones, and we'll look at that as well. So there's also those arguments to that.
What did you find here?
It's just been a long journey of. I found skeletal remains on the bottom of the canal, and it was with a remote operated vehicle, which is basically underwater submarine kind of thing, but it's remote control. It had sonar and video.
The images are stunning, to say the least, and especially when you do that comparison, then you can really see what you're seeing down there. Was there anything that drew you to this particular area?
So we'll go over the timeline, because she's been out there many times, and this body has apparently moved, and we'll kind of go over the reasons, because bodies can move. And then we'll look at the video at the end here. I blow it up, and we kind of overlay a few different things. So we'll look at that towards the end. And then also we have an update is apparently there has been, I'm not sure which agency, there's been a couple, thanks to Court TV, and I'm sure just the recent interviews with Brian Anton, these big media outlets, to get the word out there. Like I said, I'm surprised not more channels are covering this. I think this is huge. I mean, from what she's saying, she knows that at the very least, these are remains. So if they're not Stacy, there's somebody else's that's, a loved one. So it's another unsolved mystery. But it sounds like these are her sister.
I've been following a female body since 2007 down the canal. I had it in 2007, 19 days after Stacy disappeared. Basically, I've never stopped. We've had numerous sonar searches, and back in 2007, November 19th in 2007, we found a female body, which was basically my sister. You could see the hair waving, the breasts, and her legs. She was becoming buoyant, but not buoyant.
So listen to what she's saying. 19 days later, now technically, because she says November 19th, so there could be two things. Either she meant to say November 17th, or because she says 19 days later. It's not a biggie, but technically she was last seen on 28th, so really it'd be 22 days. But, you know, it's not a biggie, but it's still important because of the timeline, and we'll talk about that here in just a second.
Enough to come to the top of the surface because she was weighed down.
Weighed down. So, she went missing on October 28th, 2007, and she says she went out there on November 19th of 2007. So, I know she said 19 days, but going from the date she's provided, this would technically be 22 days. Maybe because it was November 19th and she figures that she went missing at the end of the month. I could see maybe she just say 19 because it's November 19th. Easy mistake. So, just kind of looking at some research on this. Once submerged, the body stays underwater until the bacteria in the gut. Sorry, this is a little very graphic, but it just talks about the process of what happens to a decomposing body. And anyway, so it goes on to say, the bacteria in the gut and chest cavity produce enough gas, methane, hydrogen sulfide, and carbon dioxide to cause it to float to the surface like a balloon. The buildup of methane, hydrogen sulfide, and other gases can take days or weeks, depending on the number of factors. Now, keep in mind, if this body is in a river, which now is going to keep it cold and preserve it a little bit more. And she's saying in this 22-day period that it's starting to become buoyant. So this would further support the theory of the timeline that this could be a good possibility that this is her sister's body, during the fact that this body is starting to become buoyant, but the reason it's not floating to the top is because there are some kind of weights that are weighting the body down, which we'll listen to an interview here in a minute about the former friend and what he was told by Stacy or Drew Peterson. Give me a second. And just bring back a recent case here. Poor Riley Strain. Oh, God. It's such a heartbreak to see his family and his mother. Oh, my gosh. His mother was so devastated. Every time I'd watch an interview from her, it just made me tear up. But his body was found approximately 14 days after he went missing. And remember in the last kind of, was it a press conference? It was kind of like a press conference, when they were at like the location there and they had kind of a little get together, that they talked about how, they had toned down the search after the first week. And the reason they did that is because they had a strong possibility that he may be in the river, and they knew it was going to take, some days, weeks, before the body would actually start to rise up and float. And so here, approximately 2 weeks, 14 days, the body is found, because it had kind of floated up and got caught up on a tarp in a barge. So, very interesting.
A former friend of Drew Peterson, Rick Mims, claimed he had a strange encounter and conversation with Drew Peterson.
So he didn't talk about his murders.
No.
He was, okay.
This is
Just want to
general.
clarify.
And-
right, okay. All right, yeah.
And that's when he told me all about if you dispose of a body, you can put it in any type of container. You can put it underwater, you can put it in the ground. Eventually the gases from the body are going to make the package pop to the top of the ground. So you have to put scuba weights or some type of weights in a barrel to keep them down.
So he says this before.
This is months before all this even happened.
And then you're at the house.
I trip over the bag and it's scuba weights, but it's not the new scuba weights he showed me. It was the old ones.
It's not the new ones, but it's the old ones. So, and again, this goes back to the question, like, did this guy go scuba diving, or, what's he doing with scuba weights? I mean, I know you could probably use those for, working out. You put extra weights on you, you do pull-ups, so many different ways now. But something tells me I don't think he was doing that, and I doubt he was going scuba diving. So what in the hell is he doing with scuba weights?
So wait. So you've now seen.
Moving back to the interview with Cassandra, it appears that she
was at that location for 3 days.
So the first time she found her was November 19th, 2007. Literally not even a month since she disappeared. And if all this is true, and she says she has footage and screenshots of the body being more intact when she had found it in previous dives. So, I can't imagine what this poor girl's going through, knowing that she's known almost since, like day one that her sister disappeared, that she most likely knew where her sister was.
State police were notified, and they didn't do anything. They were sent everything. They had the coordinates, and then me and my team, we were threatened to be arrested if we acted on anything. And after the third day,
that's a good question, Terry. I'm gonna look that up. So anyway, I just wanted to, and we'll continue that interview, but I've just kind of putting everything in kind of chronological order here and what she's talking about. If anyone's kind of questioning, well, would the bones move and the body moved? And she's saying that it did, because by the time they would come out, she would find the body. I mean, this is kind of the reoccurring story with this, is that she would go out there, she'd find the body, she'd notify law enforcement. They'd say, well, what do you expect us to do? Go out there today? And then it would take months. And then by the time they get out there, well, now the body has moved. And then she goes back and she finds it, and then rinse and repeat. Same thing. It says here's the body again. But then they take their sweet time, and then when they go out there, according to her, there's always two sides to every story. She says they kind of half-ass it. They don't really dive. They're just floating at the top. And nothing. So anyway, here's just a little page that talks about bones and underwater and what can happen to them. We'll go into depth in this, but I thought that was kind of interesting here. Here's where they're doing kind of like a controlled test, showing the bones could move. Now they say when canals kind of have the bends, that they're more likely to kind of get caught up on stuff. But in general, it says rivers are powerful forces that can carry bones away from their original location. Rushing waters can carry bones greater distances and may cause a more violent trip downstream than a soft, steady flow. When there is a curve in the river, point bars emerge and bones can become trapped in the river bed or embedded in the sediments. Sometimes rivers have more than one channel, offering different paths to the bones to travel, in turn causing accumulations from different sources of undetermined periods of time. So in a nutshell, yes, bones can move, especially if they're more, especially depending on the shape of the body during its time in the decomposition stage. To me, what it sounds like is when she went out there in November 19th of 2007, where the body was pretty much whole and barely little decomp. It was just now becoming gassy. But yeah, it was kind of stuck there because it was weighted down. And then, of course, with them not being able to come out for like 3 months later or whatever, that she said the body moved. So I wonder if the body, because obviously you've got marina life, that's probably kind of, and other variables that are eating away at the body. And then I think from those supports, since the body deteriorated, that it actually just kind of split and then started traveling. That's just kind of my theory. I don't know that, but just kind of going off.
She was gone.
Everything.
And we just went on continuing searching. Then the spring of 2008, we expanded and continued, and we found her.
Oh, thank you.
Down the canal, resting on the bottom. You can see decomp. Not in that video. There's actually another image, and you can see decomp and the flesh going. You can actually see a fish above her body. She still had flesh, but she lost her eyes and her feet were gone. It was kind of turning skeletal. Inform the state police.
And I think this incident is the one when they went back in spring of 2008. So that would be, 4 or 5 months later. She comes across it again. It's still got some skin on it, as you just said here. But it is deteriorating.
Above her body, she still had flesh, but she lost her eyes and her feet were gone. It was kind of turning skeletal. Inform the state police. Again, nothing. I think I fought them for like a year, and then they just went out and did a blind dive one day and didn't even like re-sonar it. Then the technology keeps getting better and better, and I looked for the best of the best, and that's when I found the one and only sonar ROV and had it brought in from Alaska, and that's what we got. That image, that's actually live video you're looking at. You can see the silt moving around the grabber claw.
So I flipped the image because we're always seeing it. I guess depending on what your perspective, but we're always seeing it one way, which almost kind of like upside down. But so I flipped the picture, so the skull's kind of normal facing, and we'll overlap some things here in just a minute.
So basically, we had the ROV sitting on top, just in that position, sitting on the bottom, and I had called state police. I had called the state's attorney. They came out. They seen it. I even set up a tent because it was cold out. And we showed them everything, and then we just stood there, and they just said, well, you expect us to come out tonight or to right now? And I just get pushed back. And then I had to call them every day. Then I called the FBI, and then finally I got the FBI to come in 3 months later after I was on that, and they just kind of did a blind dive and floated around. I have that on video. They were all just floating on the top of the water the whole time. And then when I was there, they didn't even talk to me, and they treat me like a criminal. So, and then at the end, they told me that area is cleared. So that area is there, and I was basically a criminal probably, but
So I'm just kind of cutting the two interviews. Like I said, she had the newer one with Court TV, Vinnie Politan. We love Vinnie Politan. We love them all. But I'm just kind of putting them in the chronological order of the story from how it's kind of going from one point to all these different transitions and her coming back over the different years. And I was trying to figure out, because one thing she doesn't say in these interviews, like the specific date that this specific video that they're playing. I've been trying to look. I have an idea, because she did mention May, and it just so happens that I was looking at some old news clips, and there was one in late 2021, where she went on, I don't know, a local news channel or something, and talked about that she had found the remains again, and this was in May of 2021. So I would go on a limb and say that could be a good possibility that the video we're seeing is from 2021. I could be wrong. But I'm still trying to look into that just to kind of get like the full timeline of how it's kind of moved and has slowly kind of decomposed over time.
They said it was a rock, but they didn't. Obviously, it was resilted over because the landing of the ROV washed all the silt, and that's how we could see the remains.
So they went there, they said it's a rock, and they
if you just
did
dive
nothing.
and float over it, you're not going to see anything.
So basically, they took no action. So
basically, yes. And they said the area is clear.
Okay. So are you waiting for them, or are you looking to do something before then to try to retrieve what you found and then do the testing that needs to be done?
I mean, both of those things can't be true. And how far away could that have floated? I mean,
it didn't. It covers with
They
silt
said it was a rock.
instantly. Yeah, they said that was a rock, and I actually have video footage of that when we went to move the ROV. That we actually bumped the skull, and you could see the underside of the skull, like the bottom of your skull. It fell off.
So she's saying that I'm assuming during this dive, after leaving it there and telling them, hey, we got this ROV sitting over the most likely remains, but unfortunately they wouldn't go out there, and she left it there for days, or she stayed out there for days, but she had left it over this body, or remains, or what's left, and then moved the ROV, and she said that you could see kind of inside the skull, like the bottom, I'm assuming. She kind of disturbed it a little bit.
Off. But it gets resilted over very quick. I'm ready to go. I just gotta find the right people, the right people, the right resources, and the equipment. So
I just want to pause one more time for everybody, because I know some people have been mentioning it. I know, I just had this comment. I hate to say, but AWP would be out there. Unfortunately, AWP had been reached out. AWP focuses on cars, pulling out victims or, bodies that are in cars. That's their special thing that they do. So unfortunately, they had been contacted and said, no, sorry, we focus on vehicles, bodies in vehicles in rivers or bodies of water. But especially after this interview, Vinny says that he's knows a bunch of different diving groups and would contact them. And from what I was looking in some of the Facebook groups, it seems like that has begun, because this information is now getting out. And that's why I wanted to, again, play all this, because I'm, to be honest, I'm really blown away that not more content creators are covering this, because I think this is a huge story. I mean, like I said, she says that she has footage and video or images of the body before this in more intact, which in that case, and I understand she wouldn't be able to show that because, you know, the graphic nature. But yeah, it sucks. I feel so bad for her, but because of her doing these interviews, it sounds like hopefully she's going to get at least one or two teams going out there. And of course, we're going to keep a good eye on it. Yeah, we're going to look at the canal here. I've got about 5 more minutes left of this. I do a little overlay with the skull and stuff, and then we'll look at the area itself.
To get that back.
Actually, let me, because I know it's... I'm trying to keep my eye on chat here. Madeline Reed, becoming and supporting the channel. Becoming a member and supporting the channel. Thank you so much, Madeline Reed. Good to see you. I really, really appreciate your support. Geneva, amazing supporter, gifting 5 Mob Crew memberships. If you haven't already, if you were gifted a Mob Crew membership, and if you haven't already, please thank Geneva. That is awesome. This is actually a perfect time to become a member because we'll be going out next week for our first search of the year, and we're going to have tons of footage. And if he's out there, I'm really hopeful that we may find him. But we'll talk about that a little bit at the end.
How are you feeling? Like, this has been, you've been relentless in this, and I know you.
Yeah, I love Doug.
Love your sister so much. How has this, is this giving you hope to get an answer and then the next step, get justice?
So here they put this out, and they put this out for Court TV, and I thought that was a really great little side-by-side comparison. Let me move that over just a little bit. I think it gives you a better idea if maybe some of you couldn't see the skull. You can see this eye socket. Keep in mind the skull's been in there. Especially if this is her body, it's been in there for over 16 years. It's been traveling, and you can see in the live video, which we'll see again here in full view, that, you know, it's a pretty fast moving stream or canal, whatever, and the sediment, I would assume, would start filling up the sockets and stuff, so you may not be able to make out, because you would think you'd be able to kind of make out the nose and the other socket, but of course this is kind of blocking a good portion of the view. But and the jaw too, I'm going to show it a little example where I can really see the lower jaw, like how it's sitting. I think it has Banjo has nothing to do with her. She got all the stuff that she needed to do what she needed to do. The problem is she's trying to do it in a responsible way, because it's really a conflict of interest for a family member to go recover another family member's remains, especially in the regards that there was a murder, because, you know, it's just a nightmare. So obviously you would want to locate the remains and then typically from there let law enforcement do their thing, and so everything's by the book. That way, you know, obviously Drew Peterson's still alive at the moment, in jail rotting away. But obviously if a remains to be found, then that means most likely charges would become, and then obviously what remains left, is there any signs? You know, the skull is very important. Did he crack her over the head? You know, his ex, his third wife, you know, who was originally accidental drowning. When they exhumed her body and had a second autopsy, they found that there was a big gash kind of on the back of her scalp. So, if she had any blunt force trauma to the skull, it's possible they would be able to determine that. But yeah, there's just protocols when it comes to properly recovering the body without there being, conflicts of interest and yeah. So here's me kind of putting like a skull upside down, and I was trying to find a lower jaw piece because what I see is, let me know if you kind of see this as well, but I see where, as you can tell, you kind of got these forks, on both sides of the jaw. And I can almost see where the fork is on this side, and then you've got like the lower jaw teeth right here, which would line up because the jaw, obviously, as it deteriorates, they're not connected, the skull and the lower jaw, so they would separate. And it almost looks like it's still in the position it would be, but it just kind of fell back a little bit. It's resting a little bit different. It's like the skull is facing up a little bit, and then the jaw's a little bit down, if that makes any sense. So there's live video, and I try to run it through a couple of different things, but yeah, to me, I think you can kind of see like the fork right there on one side of the lower jaw, and then right here is the the teeth right here, and then of course the top half of the skull here, and then I do an overlay here in just a minute. But yeah, that's kind of like the view I think we're seeing. Unfortunately, especially underwater, I'm sure anybody that's been familiar with just being underwater and how things look, it distorts your vision or distorts the way things look. Some things look bigger, some things look smaller. It just kind of distorts the image. Yeah, the mandible. Thank you. Yeah, the mandible. And then I overlay the that picture that they had used a side by side. I actually overlay it on the skull here in just a second. It's coming up here. So here is it slowly overlaying, and then I'll kind of fast forward it or skip it back and forth. I might have been a little too slow doing that. Yeah, it is kind of slow. So if we kind of do it like this, you can kind of see where you would kind of block the nose, and then clearly the other eye socket, because this the arm or whatever this is to the rover is blocking a good portion. But to me, that seems to be a skull. And then, according to her, she's got more than just this footage. She has the other dives, which I know it's probably because of the contents. It's a little too graphic to be showing on national news. Doesn't the canal empty into the river? Yeah, to be honest, that canal, like I said, it is, and if any locals would happy to explain a little bit more about this, what they call the I&M canal, which the I&M stands for Illinois and Michigan Canal. And it kind of offshoots from the Illinois River, and here in this instance, it kind of runs through the DuPage River. I think that's how it's pronounced. But for the most part, you can see it. It's just this little thing that kind of runs parallel And I thought I saw somewhere it runs like 60 plus miles. It's pretty wild. As you can see. And yeah, I'll look up and see how deep it is real quick. But according to the interview Court TV, they said it's down here is where she's searching. I don't know the exact spot. I'm assuming maybe that's probably because she doesn't want anybody going down there and taking it under their own hands without, reporting to the proper authorities, because you got to do this proper, you have to do it right. If I were out there and let's say next week one of us finds the remains, we would maybe take a photograph or something and then send it to law enforcement, so that way, and then from there we don't touch the scene and we pretty much maybe stay around the scene, but we wait for law enforcement to come and take over the scene, and then we get the hell out of there because we don't want to disturb whatever is found. And that just makes the courts happy, especially if there's somebody that's, if it's under nefarious actions, such in this case, you really want everything by the book. But anyway, yeah, let's see how deep this is, and then we'll look at, because this canal, I mean, there's so many areas where you could just easily pull right upside of it and dump a body out. How deep? Oh, let me turn this down. Okay, so it's not that deep, 6 to 8 feet. And that makes sense. So let's just take a little... this is where this is where I was at. So yeah, if we take a look at this bridge here. So here is the canal. And yeah, it's not very wide. And... I'm assuming, depending on the weather and other variables, 6 to 8 feet, that's not very deep. I'm 6 feet. I'm 6'3", so that means if it was just 6 feet, I would be able to stand at the bottom and my head, part of my head would be still sticking out. So yeah, it's not too deep. That's kind of like an average depth of a swimming pool. I think they're like 4 to 6 feet. But yeah, so just a little bit deeper than the average swimming pool. So, but it seems like that current is a little bit fast, but it does go for miles, and it seems like, according to her, that it has traveled, since she originally began looking for it. But this is where it gets weird, because here's an interview, and we'll get ready to finish up here, and I've got a couple more things to go over. But
tonight, authorities in Illinois trying to solve a
look at this footage here. This is supposedly from the sister's tip. Now, look at what they're searching. You'll notice this doesn't look like the canal we were looking at.
14-year mystery, searching a suburb for the remains of Stacy Peterson, the fourth wife of convicted killer Drew Peterson. Law enforcement acting on potential evidence provided by Stacy's sister, Cassandra Kales. Kales says she obtained a video recording of skeletal remains in the water in May. She gave the video to law enforcement.
It's definitely somebody. I can't say it's my sister, but it's somebody. And it's just why it takes so long to go and retrieve something.
In 2018, Kales also said she had sonar images of human remains that could be her sister's. Now, she says she continues to be frustrated by the state police's effort.
So look what it says. It says Lockport, which is much closer to where, that's close to, that's right on the boundary of Broyling Point. Broyling Brook?
Why
Probably
wait
just
5
butchered
months? How many times do I have to hand my sister or whoever it is on a silver platter to them, and then again they do nothing?
NBC News reached out to the Illinois State Police, who said they had previously searched the area, but were unsuccessful.
But see what they're showing here. This is the river, like
In finding anything.
the bigger area.
Kale
of it.
says she believes Drew killed her sister and disposed of the body on October 28, 2007 in the canal, a belief that has propelled her to keep searching for Stacy's remains.
Basically devoted my life to.
Stacy was a 23-year-old mother of 2 at the time of her.
And just to show you guys, if you look at this right here, you see this right here, and the freeway. Let's see, you guys can kind of see that right here. So you see these big little silos and stuff. And if we go, this is why I was kind of confused, because, you have the Vinnypolitan report saying that it's 20 miles plus away. But if, let's see, where is it? Yeah, right around here. Flip that on, and oh yeah, there's Lockport, and yeah, right here. Voila, look at that. Those look familiar. And then look, there's the freeway right there. So here's the freeway here. Here is the Lockport Construction Office is what it says. And we look at the video. Voila, the little square island type deal thing, and voila, same thing. So they were out like in this area, but from the Vinnypolitan report, they say that she's more further south, like 20 miles further south. Hard to find that location. Oh yeah, it was right up in here, I think. So I'm a little confused on that. I've still got to look at the Facebook group and kind of see what else, see if there's any more conversations about that. But either way, I think no matter what, Bolingbrook. Oh, is it Bolingbrook? Bolingbrook. Why did I have the Bolingbrook? Thank you. What was I going to say? I was going to say something about the river search. But yeah, it's just weird that we see this video and they're, I think if we go even further, you can tell they're kind of like searching up. Actually, I don't think this shows anymore. But that was definitely going on in Lockport. But the 20 miles in the interview with little Mr. Vinny here. It says I&M Canal, and she did say I&M Canal in one of the things. But keep in mind the I&M Canal does run, I think, several miles. Let's see. How far? 96. Let's see. It begins the South Branch Chicago River. 60. It's originally 60 feet wide and 6 feet deep. Along the canal, locks were built to accommodate differences in elevation. That's my location too. So yeah, so that's a little weird. I'm not sure exactly on the exact details, and I'm sure she probably doesn't want to give the exact location of where the last known location was, just again. But she does say that, and like I said, Vinny had said that he was going to reach out to some divers, not AWP, because AWP works specifically on recovering bodies that are in vehicles. So it has to be a vehicle involved in that kind of recovery. But I'd seen some of the names, but shame on me. I can't think of them at the time. But there was like 2 or 3. And I'd even seen one quote, a comment saying that they were going to reach out. So it might be in this Facebook group here, if I recall. Oh, yeah, there it is. Exploring with Nug, Adam Brown Adventures. I think I've heard of Adam Brown. Not sure if I heard of Exploring with Nug, and Chaos Divers. And I know Chaos Divers actually did put a post on the Brian Enter interview saying, hey, we would love to come out and help you. So yeah, hopefully that'll with all this media attention, and again, like I said, I'm really blown away not more content creators are covering this, because when you come to a case that's where a lady's, one, you got Drew Peterson, it's attached to Drew Peterson, which is his case and story is, absolutely wild. But then Stacy's disappearance, and she's been missing for over 16 years now. And now we find out that her sister had most likely found her remains 22 days after she went missing, but hasn't had the proper help to get the remains recovered. And it seems by the time she finds, the remains, that when they actually finally, law enforcement or whoever comes out, it's months later, and now the remains have moved. And then that's just kind of been the repeating process. So I do feel bad on that end. Let's see. Let me get to chat for a minute, and then I've got a couple more things before we head out. Should be back on live tomorrow. I know there's been a lot of other stuff going on in some of the other cases. I could see why, everybody's kind of spread out. Brothers Underwater Recovery has reached out to her. Awesome. I've never heard of that group. It seems like more and more are coming together, which I think is truly amazing. Could you imagine just like if that continues to grow and you get all these companies? Like I said, I'm nothing special. I go out a few times a year. Well, I'm hoping to do that more and have more resources to go out and search. And hopefully maybe we can make a household name to one of these great channels. But, it's baby steps right now. But that's something that this channel I would really like to become. Is, we go out and help in our specific situation be missing people, in deserts or in other certain locations. But and the other thing that she kind of wondered as to why maybe they weren't so as motivated is because if they did recover her remains and it was Stacy Peterson, since Drew Peterson is still alive, I know he's kind of on his, I wouldn't say deathbed, but he's up there. And there is, a theory you could say that the reason why they're not motivated is because they recovered it and it was her remains. Then that would mean that they would have to do a trial. So that would mean, court cost, all that stuff, and doing another trial. And even the sister says she doesn't want to do another trial. So the only thing that she cares about is just burying her sister. So yeah. Yep, she wants to just bury her sister. And gosh, knowing that she's been, if she had known since 22 days after she went missing, that's, I can't imagine. I'm so glad that she did show this footage. It's too bad she can't show any more of the other footage, but I'd understand because of the graphic content that might not be appropriate. Thank you, Lisa. We were pulling for you, Chris. Let's see here. Let me check chat. And just again, if you guys haven't already, please hit that like button. Another great way. I don't ask it much, but any donations, PayPal's, Venmos. We got literally a trip coming up a week from tomorrow. We are going to be going out into the desert. Search for Aiden Clune. We have literally a brand new drone, which I haven't even really taken out of the packaging. I mean, I kind of have, but got a brand new drone, which is a very respectable drone. And this is not my first time looking for him. This will be the second year looking for him. And I'll just show you guys real quick before we head out. What I think, if he's out there, just on an if he's out there. And let me just quickly... Oh, there we are. So he kind of dipped off into this mountain range right here. Oop. And let's see. Yep, right here. So this is kind of where we went in. But anyway, they tracked him up to about somewhere up on these peaks. Yeah, this is where he crossed over. And somewhere up and around in these peaks is where he was supposedly last seen. I think, because there are some roads. They're more dirt roads, but he would be able to see vehicles. And so anyway, long story short is what I would want to do. I think I'm in the right spot. Is I want to be able to come up the back end and search on these sides, because it's quite possible. 'Cause a lot of the search has gone on the other side of this mountain range, and I think, yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I'm in the right area here. And anyway, I want to be able to come up and search some of these little valleys. I think he probably reached the peak late at night. Unfortunately, even though it's the desert, it's April, and he would, if he didn't have the proper clothing on, or a fire, and the proper equipment, it's a good possibility he could succumb to the elements as nighttime and dusk and early morning hit. And anyway, I think maybe he tried to come down this side. And as far as I know, and I could be wrong, but I don't think much of this has been searched on this other end. And so that's where I'm going to be flying the drone. That's at least one of the days anyway. That's going to be my focus. And like I said, it won't be the first time going out there. And I'm hoping this second time will be, if he's out there, we find him. So, Heather, whatever, thank you. Your great channel. I remember your heart for Dylan and the family. Yes. And like I said, if they still wanted people's health, I'd be out there helping for Dylan rounds. Unfortunately, they kind of want to do their own thing. Who knows? They may change over time. But as for most of you that have been with me, know that the proper way to do things with searches, you contact the families, and if law enforcement's working there and doing their stuff, you want to communicate as many people as you can to get on the same page. That way you're not just out there, and it doesn't mean that for those people that are out randomly searching for, like, say, Sebastian Rogers. Anybody that's out there searching, that's amazing. Good for them. But, there's always protocols and, ways to do it appropriately without, having any kind of backlash and, searching, maybe private property. And, like I said, still, if you're out there searching, you're an amazing person. But again, you really want to do it in a responsible way, because doing it a responsible way means that if you do find stuff and you don't but you don't mishandle evidence that could be found, that's just better for all the parties. If there's foul play, that's something that attorneys or defense attorneys can't go bring up, and that kind of stuff. So, with that, again, like I said, I know a lot of people donated to the drone fund, and I am going to do a video where I shout everybody out. It might be this weekend or something. And again, we're still, if you'd like to still send in donations, like I said, I don't really ask for them, but if you do, because I do got to do some things with my car. I've got to get 2 new tires and then do a tune-up before we go out there, because sounds like I'm going to be doing a little off-roading, but I got a Toyota RAV4, so it can not get anywhere, but it can, get into a lot of places other vehicles may not. So I saw Jesse Vang was in court, but I don't know if there was any details other than finding the blanket and that car that they believe had been used to transport him somewhere. There hasn't been much, sadly, but I do keep an eye on that case. Yeah, HJ, no one should ever touch anything that could be evidence. Yes. Yeah, you really want to try to, because like I said, at the end of the day, it could be used against you, which, sounds ridiculous, but, a defense attorney is going to look for anything that they could, pick apart. So. Oh, Matthew says, I have taken my bike the full length of I&M Canal a couple of times. I know one other missing person in the area, Wendy Gessup. Ooh, I might need to write that down. I've seen that name. I'll have to look that up. And that case is very interesting. I wrote that down, Matthew. Thanks for sharing that. I will see. Is it confirmed now? She says she's 99% sure that's human remains and her sister. I think it is. I just think, as we told earlier, it's a thing where she goes out there and then says, "Hey, here it is. Here's where the remains are," and they're like, "Well, we can't come out now." And then by the time they come out, the body has now, or whatever's left, has moved on. And that just seems to be a reoccurring situation. Also, one more thing. I really don't like to mention stuff like this because there's always been some bad things that go on with this, and that's GoFundMes. She says she is doing a GoFundMe, but I'm not going to put a link or anything on my channel. I really try to stick away from GoFundMes. Because I don't know how many times there are GoFundMes that just go completely wrong. Some have been hacked. Some are just ill-intentioned. Some seem to be coming from the people that need the help, but they're actually made by another party, or they'll build one that looks just exactly the same as the one that's going on. And it's countless times where GoFundMes have a bad rep. I think that's a great cause, but for whatever reason, I just can't. I cannot do an actual post a link, because it just I can't have that on my hands. Finding out that in some way it was somehow not what it was supposed to be. So, but anyway, I just wanted to let people know that there is that, and you could do your own research, and your money, if you spend money, that is at your own risk. But I encourage you to do research and maybe speak with the people that are involved in that GoFundMe to, make sure it's actually going to the right people. So, yeah. Oh, it's bad. Being a YouTuber since I've started, I have seen so many, and a lot of them are goodwill intentioned, and for some reason something happens where it's a fake one, and there's one real one, but then there's like 4 fake ones, and somehow the fake ones overlap the real ones, and it happens so much. And so I spoken with another creator. I think it was Gizzy from Grizzly True Crime. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was her that we had talked about that. And we both said, yeah, there's no way we can't. There's no way we're gonna support GoFundMe's, because it just, there was like 1 year where there was just absolutely a travesty. So anyway, just one more time. Thank you to everybody taking the time to watch the show. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. Again, a huge shout out to Renee for the $20, Deborah Ann, Madeline Reed for renewing or becoming a member for the Mob Crew, and then Geneva gifting 5 Mob Crew memberships. It really helps. Like I said, we still could use some funds for getting the car ready for next weekend, but we still got live shows to raise some more money. But with that, I hope you guys have a great weekend. I think I'm probably going to do a live tomorrow, just because I need to kind of make up some shows because we had a hiccup on Wednesday. So for the mods, I should be back on. It'll be kind of an earlier show since, another channel will go shortly after. So probably 6 p.m. Eastern time, we'll probably be going live. And again, thank you to my wonderful mods, Copper Horse, Jennifer, D, Jocelyn. I don't know if I saw Michaela. If Michaela and you're in here, you should go check your P.O. box. Your mug has arrived. And with that, depending on where you're at, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or good night. Was solar eclipse tonight? Along with the earthquakes. It's kind of eerie. So I hope you guys be safe, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Oh, one more thing. Oh, I need some more photos, pet pictures. I need like maybe 4 or 5. So if you haven't sent in a picture of your pet, email me. Send a picture in. Please put the name in there. Because, yeah, I need about like 4 or 5 more pets to fulfill my next outro. Just wanted to say that. All right, guys. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.